Once upon a time, in a far-off kingdom, there lived a young prince named Alexander. Alexander was born into a life of luxury and privilege, and he was always surrounded by servants and advisors who told him what to do and what to think. As a child, Alexander was indulged in every way. He had all the toys he could want, the finest clothes, and the best tutors money could buy. His parents, the king and queen, loved him dearly, and they wanted nothing more than to see him happy and successful. But despite all the advantages he had in life, Alexander was not a happy child. He was spoiled, selfish, and ungrateful. He took everything he had for granted and never stopped to think about the struggles of others. He had no empathy for anyone outside of his own narrow circle of family and friends. One day, when Alexander was a young man, his kingdom was invaded by a neighboring army. The king and queen were killed, and Alexander was captured and taken as a prisoner of war. For the first time in his life, Alexander was forced to confront the harsh realities of the world. He was no longer surrounded by servants and advisors who told him what to do. He was alone and vulnerable, and he had to rely on his own wits and instincts to survive. At first, Alexander was terrified. He had never faced such adversity before, and he had no idea how to cope with the loss of his parents and the collapse of his comfortable life. But as time went on, Alexander began to change. He saw how the other prisoners around him were suffering, and he realized that he was not the only one who had lost everything. He started to empathize with the struggles of others, and he began to feel a deep sense of compassion for the people around him. Through his trials and tribulations, Alexander learned many important lessons. He learned the value of hard work and perseverance. He learned the importance of empathy and compassion. He learned that true happiness comes not from wealth or privilege but from the relationships we build with others. When the war finally ended, Alexander was freed from captivity, and he returned to his kingdom a changed man. He no longer took his position for granted, and he worked tirelessly to rebuild his kingdom and restore its prosperity. And though he never forgot the lessons he had learned, Alexander remained humble and compassionate throughout the rest of his life. He used his power and influence to help others, and he always remembered the struggles he had faced and the people who had helped him through them. In the end, Alexander became known throughout the kingdom as a wise and just ruler. He was loved and respected by his subjects, and he left a legacy of compassion and kindness that lasted for generations to come. The moral of the story is that true happiness and fulfillment come not from material possessions or social status, but from the relationships we build with others and the compassion we show for their struggles. We must always remember to be humble, empathetic, and kind, even in the face of adversity, and we must use our power and influence